Okay, namaste everyone and welcome to this Vivekachudamani class. Om Guru Brahma, Guru Vishnu, Guru Devo Maheshwara, Guru Sakshat Parbrahma, Tasmai Shri Guruve Namah. Om Bhuvah Swaha, Tatsavitra Varenayam, Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi, Dhiyo Yo Nah Prachodayat, Asto Ma Satgamya, Tamso Ma Jyotirgamya, मृत्योर्मा अमृतम गम्य ओम सहना भवतु सहना भुनक्तु सवीर्यं कर्वावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै ओम शांति 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 ओम. We ended our last class with verse number 178, and in these verses Adi Shankaracharya is telling us or convincing us with the logical reasons that we are not the Manomaya Kosha, the mental sheath. So if you remember, he started this discussion from the Anmaya Kosha. We are not the food sheath. He gave a beautiful arguments for that. Then we are not the Pranmaya Kosha. Now, these verses are about the Manomaya Kosha. Then he'll talk about the Vijnanmaya Kosha. Okay. So let's look at verse number 179. अध्यास दोषात पुरुषस्य संसृति अध्यास बंधः तु अमुनः एव कल्पितः रजः तमो दोषवतः अविवेकिनः जन्म आदि दुःखस्य निदानम एतत्. अध्यास दोषात. Adhyas means superimposition. Dosh means the defect. So due to the defect of superimposition, Purushasya, of a person, samsriti, transmigration. It's like a coming and going, transmigration. Adhyas bandha, bondage of superimposition. Tu means but, amunaha, by the mind. Ev means alone, kalpita, created. Rajaha tamo doshvataha, who is tainted with rajas and tamas. So according to him, even the Rajsikta and the Tamsikta, they are the dosha. Aviveknaha, one who lacks discrimination. Janam adi dukhasya, of the misery of birth, etc. Nidanam, cause. Etat means this. The defect of superimposition causes a person's time transmigration. And the mind alone is responsible for the bondage of superimposition. For a person who is tainted with the rajas and tamas and who lacks discrimination, this causes the misery of birth, etc. So this ever-changing phenomena of this world, which is called sansara, is like a inside or inside ourselves or outside. There are a lot of joys and the sorrows. That is a sansar. Sometimes we do feel joy when the things happen according to our wish. But then there are sorrows also. Because wherever we see the change, we don't like to change. Wherever there's a change, there's an agitation. And agitation is the expression of sorrow. Anytime we get agitated, And whenever the change is there, we get agitated. So that's why we see sorrow more in this world. But over here in this verse, Shankaracharya is saying, root of all this is superimposition, adhyas. So that's like adhyas is a misapprehension, not non-apprehension, but misapprehension. Something is there, but we think it's something else. That is adhyas. The example we always talk about, the snake and the rope. It's not that we don't see anything. If we don't see anything, there's no problem. That's a non-apprehension. But a misapprehension is that we assume it's a snake. Yeah, Urmil is asking which verse? 179, Urmil. 179. Okay. So this misapprehension, and which is called superimposition, in Sanskrit it's called adhyas. Remember that. Okay. See, that's why you remember those, whenever we learn something, I tell you there are 3 layers to it. Shravan, Manan, Nididhyasan. So that means if we are superimposing, misapprehending something with the help of the knowledge which learned from our scriptures of the Guru, we got to have a right apprehension. Okay. Otherwise, learning, remembering, it doesn't mean anything unless we practice it. And this happens with the practice. So this adhyas is a technical word, remember this. So when the truth of a thing is not correctly seen, it is our error. Sometimes it's an error in the judgment, and we just substitute something else in its place. And this is a trick of the mind. That's why Shankaracharya is saying it's all related to the mind. This is like your mind project something else. It's a projection. So sorrow is not in the non-apprehension, but is inherent in the misapprehension. See, that's why people often say that ignorance is bliss. So completely ignorant person doesn't even know anything. Complete darkness outside, you won't even see there is a rope. But a little bit of light, twilight, you will think that it's a snake, not a rope. Okay, so it's not a non-apprehension, it's a misapprehension. So phenomena of superimposition, and it's not just one side, it's not only half. You will not say that half of this rope is snake. Say total rope is a snake. So it's not one-sided. And illusion is never, or adhyas, superimposition is never without a base. If it's a rope only, then you will see a snake. You will not say this rope is a tiger or an elephant. Okay, so there is some basis to it, something in your mind which you knew earlier, and you are superimposing it. So that's why mind is very much a part of it. So the rope lends its existence to the snake, and the snake lends its dharam to the rope. And dharam of the snake is to make us fearful, and we become fearful, and that is adhyas. So half snake, half rope vision is not possible. So that's why when we are overwhelmed with this maya, it's a complete maya. All of our buddhi just gets covered with this adhyas. And when the truth is realized, the complete truth spontaneously is realized. This is what he's trying to tell us. So he who has been deluded by his own superimposition will have to undergo these sorrows. Sorrows are always because of these flaws, mental flaws. Then in the next verse, he says, so in this one, another key term to remember is that this is when the mind is predominantly Rajasic and Tamasic, only then the superimpositions affect us. Tamasic and Rajasic. So that's why it's very, very important to know our behaviors. Is it a Tamasic, Rajasic? No, I want to make it Sattvic. We got to move our behavior. We got to move our thoughts. We got to move our life more and more towards Sattvikta. Rajsikta and Tamsikta will give us a sorrow. Okay. So let's look at next one, 180. Ataha prahu mana avidyam panditah tatvadarshinaha yen ev bhramyate vishwam vayuna iv brahmandalam. Ataha means therefore, hence, or so. Prahu. Prahu means they say, consider. Manaha mind, avidyam ignorance. Panditaha, the wise, the sages. Pandit. Tattvadarshina, those who know the truth. Know means who have experienced the truth, know in a reality. Yen means by which, ev means alone, bhramyate, tossed around. It's like a purposelessly moving or changing. That's bhramyate. Vishwam, the universe, Vayuna, by wind. Iv means like Abhramandalam. So Abhra means cloud. So Abhramandalam means masses of clouds. Hence, the mind is considered to be avidya by sages who have discovered its secret. So that means they know in reality what is the cause of it. And these wise people, they say, this is because of the ignorance of the mind. By this alone, the universe of experience is tossed around like the clouds by the wind. So, because of the reasons given from verses 174 to 79, he says the learned ones, the wise people say that the mind alone is avidya. Atma is not avidya. Mind is the avidya. Because of the mind, the activities of the world continue. So purposelessly we keep on moving around. So this Brahman is the illusion of a purposeless change. He's not talking about the change which is taking us horizontally. This is the change where we are just doing this and doing that and moving forward and then moving backward. That kind of a change. We think we are very busy. Purposeful change will be when we remember the ultimate purpose. This is a purposeless change. That's a Brahman. Moving about with no aim or goal through a series of profitless changes. If you look at it, our own life, 40, 50, 60, 70 years of this life alone, how many moments we spent moving towards the ultimate goal? What did we do for that goal? Majority of the things we have done, what animals do too. Eating, sleeping, procreating, being fearful of the future. There's no purpose in there. So that's why he's talking about it with this strongly to us. This jogging alone in the realm of change creates sorrow for us. Sure, we are jogging very fast. It's a fast paced life. But what is the purpose? Are we moving towards the goal or not? Then he says in the next one, 181. So he's still talking about this Manomaya Kosha. Tat manashodhanam karyam prayatnena mumukshnaha vishuddhe sati cha etasmin muktihi karfalayate. So now he's telling us what to do. You've been moving around aimlessly. He says that therefore, manashodhanam, purification of mind, karyam, should be achieved. If the mind is not pure, it's superimposing and it's wasting our time. So that means therefore, manashodhanam, purification of mind, karyam, should be achieved. Priyatnen, by diligence. We got to make an effort. Priyatan karke. We should not think that, oh, it will happen by itself. It will not happen by itself. We got to do something about it. By itself, you know what happens? Going down happens by itself. When we are on a hill, going down, it happens by itself. To go up, you have to make an effort. So that's why he used the word pratanen, by diligence. Mumukshnaha, by the seeker of liberation. Vishuddhe sati, when purified. Cha means and, etasmin means this. Mukti means liberation. Karfalayate, becomes available as a fruit in one's hand. Kar means hand. Fal means fruit. It is so visible, just like we have a fruit in our hand. Beautiful verse. He says, therefore, the mind must be diligently purified by one who seeks liberation. When the mind has been purified, liberation becomes as readily available as a fruit in one's own hand. It's not far away. And how do we purify our mind? Rishi Patanjali told us very clearly, step by step. Ahimsa, satya, ste, brahmacharya, aparigraha. Those are the only techniques to make the mind pure. Just like yogis, they told us how to keep this body clean, body pure. Do the shatkaram, do the pranayam, do the asanas. They keep the body clean. But in order to clean the mind, and over here we are talking about the mind, because this brahmyate is because of the mind. So mental purification is essential for a person who knows that ultimate goal is mukti. This one verse itself gives us the complete direction. The mind must be diligently, it's not going to get pure by itself. By itself, human minds, they want to do the hinsa. In order to be on the path of ahimsa, non-violence, we got to be alert about it. Do I think about somebody the wrong way? That happens very easily. Finding faults very easily. But in order to find good qualities, talk about good qualities, follow somebody who is following the good qualities, it takes diligence. It takes prayatana. Okay? So therefore, the mind must be diligently purified by one who seeks liberation. When the mind has been purified, liberation becomes as easy, as clear. It's not in the future. It's not after thousands and hundreds and thousands of lives. It's in this life the yogis tell us that we can see that liberation, right? Just like a fruit in our hand. And those are the personalities called Jivan Mukta. They are living just like us, but they are free. Because they have diligently moved the Rajsikta and the Tamsikta from their mind. They have made their mind pure. Whole journey, whole practice is about the mind. So this explanation he is giving it us to us so that we understand it firmly and start working on it. So purification of the mind means removal of Rajagun and Tamogun. Now I think what you need to do, or we all need to do, pull out that piece of paper where I have given you in the past. It's like a whole list on two sides of one paper. Rajsik, Tamsik, and Satvik behaviors. Because that is something we need to practice. I'm sure you'll be able to find it on the on our online also. Right? It's there. I think Jyoti is saying that it's there. So print it out. Look at it. Rajsikta, Tamsikta should be out. Just like Wednesday's talk. What did I say? What did we talk about Wednesday? Grief. That's a Tamsik. If we want to move towards our goal, we have to get that out. Fear is a Tamsik. Violence is Tamsik. So purification of the mind means removal of Rajagun and Tamogun. And how do we know we are Rajsik or Tamsik? We got to look at it from the resultant. Resultant is what? Agitation. And this agitation is the one which veils our Atma. Doesn't let us know who we are. So with great effort, intelligent self-control, purification of the mind must be achieved. Effort. Okay. Nobody can consistently put in this kind of effort unless the goal is clear. So that's why he used the word mumukshnaha. We got to have this inspiring goal in our mind constantly. Burning desire to attain that goal. When this is done, liberation is not far. Okay. Let's look at next one. 182. Moksha ek sakteyah विषयेषु रागम निर्मूल्य संन्यस्य है च सर्व कर्म सत श्रद्धया यो श्रवण आदि निष्ठा राज्य स्वभवम सधुनोति ही बुद्धे. मोक्ष एक सत्य with a single pointed devotion for liberation. It's like a supreme goal. Vishyeshu for sense objects. Ragam, attachment, desire. Nirmulya, having rooted out. See, mool means root, nirmul means out, without the roots. Sannyasya, having renounced, giving up. Cha means and. Sarva karam, all actions. Sat shraddhyaha, with faith in truth. So it's like a earnestly dedicating your actions for truth. Sat shraddhya. Here means he, shravan adi nishtha, devoted to hearing, etc. Okay, shravan adi, hearing, and then what comes after hearing? Shravan manan nidhi dhyasana. So that's what he means over here. Rajaha swabhavaha, rajasic nature. Sa means he, Dhunoti, purges, completely destroys, purifies, dhunoti, buddhe, of the intellect. With a single pointed devotion for liberation. See, he keeps repeating it to us, so that means we got to pay attention to it. With a single pointed devotion for liberation, he who roots out his attachment for sense objects, renounces all actions, and with faith in truth, constantly hears, etc., he can purge the rasic nature in his intellect. So sometimes we wonder, what do we need to do? This is what we need to do. This is the abhyas he is telling us, step by step. Sanyasya sarva karama. That doesn't mean that we should not do any actions. He is telling us the doership of the action. Do the action without the doership, without the enjoyership. Become a yogi. So relinquishing both the doership and the enjoyership, that's what he really means over here. Because that's how we will end our ego. I am the enjoyer, I am the doer. Constantly thinking about the fruits of our actions for ourselves. We got to let that go. Activities without ego and egocentric desires cleanse our mind. That's why our gurus, they tell us to do more seva. Help others. Don't become so arrogant. Every day, some part of your day should be spent on just doing something for somebody else. That will purify your mind. This is the only way we will purify our mind. When a person works dedicatedly without the ego and the egocentric desires, the vasanas in us, because there are layers and layers of the vasanas, they get exhausted. So by doing something, not just by sitting and thinking about it, wishing about it, going to some person who can read the palm or read the forehead. No, doing something. It's just like if I have a old silver jug and it's all black, how do I make it clean? I keep on rubbing it with a cleaner, keep on rubbing with a cleaner, and then wash it. It will be just like new again. That's what we need to do over here. Keep on working for others, more and more for others, to exhaust your own vasanas. That's why he said, study of the Shastra, Shravan, because they tell us to do it. And ultimately, when we can do it, and when we can just let go or eliminate our false vanity, I am the doer, it goes away. So dedicated activity without the ego, egocentric desires, understanding, and an intelligent removal of the vanity, arrogation in us that, hey, I did it. No, let that go. The result will be the complete cleansing of the Rajsikta and the Tamsikta from you. So let me read it again, because I think all these things he has mentioned so beautifully with a single pointed devotion for liberation. So we got to know our goal. He who roots out his attachment for sense objects, renounces all actions. Okay, and then you all know what does it mean. Not the actions, but the doership of the actions. With faith in truth, constantly hears, etc. The scriptures, scriptural truth, can purge the Rajasic nature in his intellect. Okay? You will say, how about Tamsik? A person who is highly Rajasic, Tamsikta has gone out actually. So he's talking about a person who is highly Rajasic right now. How can he move towards Satvikta? Let's look at 183 now. So because this is the last one where he is giving, he's kind of a summarizing what he has been saying about Manomaya Kosh. Manomaya na apihi vet paratma, he adi antvat antvatvat परिणाम अभिभावात दुख आत्मकत्वात विषयत्व हेतु हो दृष्टा ही दृश्य आत्मतया न दृष्टा. Manomaya, the mental sheath. You're all familiar with this term now. Na means not, api means also. Bhavet, can be. Paratmaha, the supreme self. Atma is the self, Paratma, supreme. Par means par, always means supreme. He means because or therefore. Adi Antvatvat, having a beginning and an end. Parinam Abhibhavat, being subject to modifications. Dukh Atmaktvat, being of the nature of suffering. Vishyatva Hetoho, because of it being an object. Vishya means object. Drashtaha, seer. And seer means the subject. That's what seer is. Person who's seeing, the subject. He means whereas drishya atmatya, as an object seen. Drishya is the seen. Drashta is the seer. Na means not, drishtaha, seen. So the mental sheath cannot be the supreme self either. Okay, so this is what he's trying to tell us. First, he explained what mental sheath Manomaya Kosha is. Now he is coming to the conclusion for us. He says the mental sheath, the Manomaya Kosha, cannot be the supreme self. It cannot be the Atma. Why? Because it has a beginning and an end. Atma doesn't have that. Atma doesn't have a beginning or an end. It is eternal. It is subject to modifications. Manomaya is subject to modifications, vikar. Pain and suffering characterize it. In Atma, there's no pain or suffering. It is an object of cognition. It's not a subject. The subject can never be identified with the object of knowledge. So there are 5 arguments Shankaracharya is making over here to convince us that Manomaya Kosha is not the Atma. And this is all based upon the last so many verses. See how logical, how much effort these rishis have made for us. They knew it. They didn't have to write it. They didn't have to go through all this. The elaboration with the examples in detail for people like us so that we can reach that ultimate goal. So 5 reasons he is giving to prove to us that the mental sheath cannot be the Atma. So let me just tell you all 5. Number 1, because it has a beginning and an end. That is number 1. So Manomaya Kosh has the beginning and an end. We see that, don't we see that? When we are in a deep sleep at night, there's an end to our mind. At that time, when we wake up in the morning, again that Manomaya Kosha starts to function. So in deep sleep, it ceases to function. But Atma doesn't cease to function. Atma is the one which keeps on alivening our deep sleep also. Our Turiya state also. And number two, it is subject to modifications. Sometimes we are happy, sometimes we are not. Sometimes we are painful, agitated. It is characterized by pain and sorrow. Number four is it is an object of cognition, and it's ever identified with the object of knowledge. Because mind is the cause for all these sense objects. That's why it's said that it's object of cognition. Objects constantly change. That's why mind keeps on changing to become the object. Because effects are nothing else but the cause in another form. And mind cannot be the Atma, because the Atma is neither the cause nor the effect. Okay? Atma is not the cause. Because Atma is the divine, changeless substratum for all the changes, and the changes happen because of the Prakriti. And mind is identified with the objects. What we see around us is the seer in another form for us. So that's why he's telling us, because of these five, mind cannot be the Atma. Now in the next verse, he starts out Vijnanamaya Kosh. Vijnanamaya Kosh. So 184 to 188. So he's telling us that, hey, if you thought that you are the intellectual sheath, that's not true either. Buddhi, buddhi indriya, sartham, savriti, kritrihi lakshanaha, vigyan me koshaha, sayat punsaha, sansar karnam. Buddhi, intellect. Buddhi indriya, the organs of perception. Sardham, that means with. Savriti, with its modifications, with its thoughts. Kritri lakshanaha, of the nature of the doer. Kritri. Vigyan me kosha, the intellectual sheath. Sayat means is. Punsaha, a person's. Sansar karnam, the cause for transmigration. The, the intellect with its modifications, along with the organs of perception, form the intellectual sheath. Okay. See, organs of perception. We know organs of actions and their organs of perception. So the intellect with its modifications along with the organs of perception form the intellectual sheath. It has the characteristics of the agent. Agent means the doer, the karta, which is the cause for transmigration. So the Vijnanamaya Kosh constitutes the intellect, the sense organs of perception, and all the different modifications of the intellect. It really controls the organs of perception. But still it veils the Atma for us. It is not the Atma. This is also the cause for the sansar. The modifications of the intellect are the awareness of doing and the concept of I am doing. See, just like if I see something, I am seeing. I am doing. So that's whenever there's a I am doing, I am enjoying, this transmigration continues. This I, the lower I. This concept creates more and more vasanas. And in order to exhaust the vasanas, we need to move a little away from it. Only then we will rise above this birth and death cycles. And how this Kosh is the cause for the sansar, it is explained in the next verse, verse number 185. Because this is what he's trying to, it's almost like a thesis, that how he's giving us the logical reason, and then he's telling us this is not what it is. So, anu vrajat chit pratibimb shakti विज्ञान संज्ञा प्रकृते विकार ज्ञान क्रियावान अहम इति अजस्रम देह इंद्रियादिषु अभिमन्यते भृशम अनुव्रजत. That means accompanied by. See, vraj means roaming. Anuvraj means constantly roaming about. Okay, constantly. Chit pratibimb shakti, a reflection of the power of consciousness. Vigyan Sangya, intellectual sheath. Vigyan Sangya. Sangya means it's named. It's a Vigyan. Prakriti, of Prakriti. Vikaraha, a modification. Gyan Kriyavan, endowed with the function of knowledge and action. Gyan Kriyavan. Aham iti, as I. Aham means I. Ajasram, always. Deha indriya adishu, with the body, sense organs, etc. Abhimanyate is identified. It's like a egoism. Abhiman. Brisham, completely, powerfully, or very strongly. So accompanied by a reflection of the light of Chit. The intellectual sheath is a modification of Prakriti. It is endowed with the function of knowledge and is always completely identified with the body, sense organs, etc. So Vigyan mein Kosh, because it's subtler than the Manomaya Kosha, and Manomaya Kosha was subtler than the Pranmaya Kosha. So reflection of the light, the consciousness. Over here, Chit really means the consciousness, the Atma. It's a little closer. So there's a reflection of it. Consciousness is all pervasive at all times. Everything is enlivened because of that. But consciousness reflected in the intellect is intelligence. Is intelligence. See, just like electricity reflected or functioning in the bulb is light. Consciousness reflected, and this is the word pratibimb over here. Pratibimb. In Upanishads, they talk about there's a reflection theory, pratibimbavad. It's a reflection in there, not actual in there. We see our reflection in the mirror, but we are not actually in the mirror. The same way in the buddhi or in the intellect, there is a reflection of the Atma. Remember that. We'll talk more about it next week. Now I think it's time 11:17. So, but remember that we will start from this verse next week. So the mighty power of eternal consciousness, which is the spark of the life in every one of us, is not confined to the within. It is present everywhere all the time. Sure, our own Vijnanamaya Kosh thinks that, hey, it's over here, but it's everywhere else also. So we'll talk more about it next week, starting from here. So let's me just do the Shanti mantra and then we can go through some of the questions also. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vishishyate. Om Shanti 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 Om. Thank you very much.